Are you interested in some spicy new deck tech? Well, here's your host, Capital G!
And ladies and gentlemen, Capital G back at it, bringing you a Kemi Commander deck. Actually stand by on that. Tatsunari Toad Rider Commander deck tech. Before we dive into the tech itself, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel. And also come join the Discord group, Dungeons and Cardboard. Free to join and free to play. It's our LGS away from our LGS. Lots of magic, flesh and blood, Dungeons and Dragons, and these days a lot, and I do mean a lot, of Elden Ring. So be sure to come check that out and play some great games with some awesome people. With that out of the way, let us talk about Tatsunari. We got ourselves a Human Ninja, black and 2 for this 3/3. And whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't already control a Kemi, create a Kemi token. It's 3/3, it's black and green, and it says that whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. This is often complemented with aristocrat strategies, cards like Zulaport Cutthroat, or the Meat Hook Massacre, for example. We're not really leaning into that. I'm really leaning into the enchantment side of things, and I want to get that trigger from casting enchantments. Helping to speed things up a little bit is a nice combat trick where we can pay either a green or blue mana, as well as an additional generic to have this and target frog we control unblockable except by creatures with flying or reach. So it'll make it a little easier to get both Tatsunari and Kemi through combat. But as I said, I'm really leaning into that enchantment cast trigger, and that's a lot of enchantments to cast to drain out the table, so how are we going to speed up that process a little bit? Well, here's what I'm proposing today. Mutate. So, this Ikoria mechanic is a little awkward. Be sure to do your homework if you're going to play it. But what we need to know for today is that if we have a Kemi token, and we mutate a creature on top of it, such as Otrimi, it changes the name of the card. So as long as you're putting the Otrimi on the top of the token rather than the bottom, that card is no longer called Kemi, but it's called Otrimi, which means our next enchantment will create an additional token for us. That's the concept. Otrimi itself would make the mutated creature a 6/6 with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to return a card with mutate from our graveyard to our hand. And we're going to be running a total of 10 mutate creatures in order to get this effect. Didn't want to run more than that. 10 seems to be a good number. I'm going to dive into the rest of the creatures, but before we do, I want you to note that we are not running any artifacts at all in this deck. No artifacts. No Soul Ring, no nothing. So let us look at the meat and potatoes, starting with the Agent of Erebos. 4 mana for this 2/2 enchantment creature. We're running a lot of enchantment creatures because it complements our commander. And whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, we get to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. A nice little graveyard hate piece for us. Bit of a money card. If you've got it, play it. But the Argothian Enchantress. It's a 0/1 with Shroud, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. One of our mutate creatures, the Boneyard Lurker. For 4 mana, whenever this creature mutates, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. A reminder that you can mutate the same creature multiple times. And so if this is already mutated one of our tokens, because that's what it's here for, and you decide to mutate something else on top of it, such as Otrimi, you get that trigger again. Moving on to Chittering Harvester. It's 5 mana to mutate this. It's a 4/6, and whenever this mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Nice little incidental removal. Destiny Spinner. A great piece to protect us from counter spells. Creature and enchantment spells we control cannot be countered. We can also pay 4 and turn one of our lands into an XX elemental creature with trample and haste, where X is the number of enchantments we control. Sweet. Dockside Chef. It's an enchantment creature, so of course we're going to run it only 1 black for it. And we can also pay a black and 1 and sacrifice an artifact or creature to draw a card. No artifacts to sacrifice, but it's a nice way to sack off our creatures if we must. The Dreamtail Hedron, or Heron in fact. 3/4. Mutate is blue and 3, and whenever this creature mutates, draw a card. Also gives the creature that it mutates flying, which is pretty nice. Fang of Shikiki. A 1/1 Death Touch enchantment creature snake. Sure. Gem Razor. Also known as Angrius the Armored Killer, but it's a Gem Razor. Mutate is double green and 1. It has reach and trample. And whenever this creature mutates, destroy an artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. The Gloom Shriekers is I love the art of this one. I want this playmat. Seriously. If I get this playmat, I'm going to replace the one that I have here. I'm going to see if I can find a playmat for this. Black, green, and 1 for this 2/1 Cat Beast with Menace. It's an enchantment creature, so it triggers our commander. And when this enters the battlefield, return a permanent card from our graveyard to our hand. If this would die, exile it instead. So we can't loop this, which is unfortunate, but it's still a great card for our deck. Running the Goshen Ties. So this one, of course, is Goshen Tie of Boundless Vigor. For whatever reason, my program is giving me the Japanese version of this, but that's fine. It is a 1/1 with trample. On the beginning of our end step, we may pay 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on target shrine for each shrine we control. So this, of course, is an enchantment creature shrine, but no creature type. Nonetheless, it's a 1/1 with trample that if you have some extra mana lying around, we can use it to make our creatures bigger. Goshen Tie of Hidden Cruelty. In this case, it's in French. Oops. 4 mana for this 2/2. It has Death Touch. It is a shrine, and at the beginning of our end step, we may pay 1, and when we do, destroy target creature with toughness X or less, where X is the number of shrines we control. This one's in English. Goshen Tie of Lost Wisdom. Blue and 1 for this 0/4 flying. At the beginning of our end step, we may pay 1. If we do, target player mills X cards. If somebody has something on top of their library that we need to mill off and we know that we should do it, we will. Obviously, mill's not a big part of our strategy. It's just a nice flying blocker for us, really. The Greater Tanuki. Love the flexibility here. 6 mana for a 6/5 trample. Not super impressive, but it is an enchantment creature. It also has channel, so we could actually pay a green 2 and discard this from our hand to go get a basic, put it onto our battlefield tapped. So I like having the ability to play it as an enchantment creature or play it as a ramp piece. On the topic of ramp pieces, the Migratory Greathorn. Whenever this creature mutates, search our library for a basic, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle our library. Mutates for a very reasonable green and 2 generic. We gotta have some recursion. We're running the colors. Let's run Muldrotha. We all know it very well. Very powerful commander. I still run my all permanents Muldrotha deck. So we all know how good this is. Being able to cast one spell of each permanent type, as well as play a land from our graveyard. Nylea's Colossus. A bit of a finisher. 7 mana for the 6/6 giant. But when this or another enchantment enters the battlefield, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So yes, because we can make our commander unblockable very easily, if we cast a couple of enchantments, make it unblockable, swing, and deal some big damage that way. Nylea Keen-Eyed, running one of the gods here. 4 mana for this 5/6 legendary enchantment creature, God. It's indestructible, but it's not a creature if our devotion is less than 5 devotion to green. So that means 5 green mana pips showing on the battlefield. Creature spells are 1 less to cast, which is pretty nice. And we can also pay a green and 2 and reveal the top card of our library. We get to put it into our hand if it's a creature. Otherwise, we may put it to our graveyard. Parcel Beast. Blue, green, and 2 for this 2/4 elemental beast. It has mutate, so green and blue to mutate this. And it gives a pretty cool activated ability. 1 tap and we get to look at the top card of our library. If it's a land, we can put it onto the battlefield. If we don't, we put it into our hand. Pretty sweet. The Pouncing Shore Shark. That's a tricky word to say. Shore Shark. Blue and 3 mutate, has flash, and whenever this creature mutates, you may return target creature and opponent controls to its owner's hand. Nice little tempo piece. Sanctum Weaver, we're running lots and lots of enchantments, so let's generate lots and lots of mana. Sawtusk Demolisher, green and 3 for this to mutate this one onto one of our tokens. 6/6 trample, and whenever this mutates, destroy target non-creature permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 beast, so it's a beast within and a mutate all in one card. Nice. Sea Dasher Octopus. Only 2 mana to mutate, which is super efficient. That's what we want for the deck. Has flash, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Now, even if we put the Sea Dasher Octopus on top of our Kimi token, it retains both creature types, so it's still a frog. We could still make it unblockable and draw cards with our commander. Stats Champion, green and 2 for this human warrior. And whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, this gets a +1/+1 counter, and we get to draw a card. So, an Enchantress. Shimmerwing Chimera. Another one of our enchantment creatures. At the beginning of our upkeep, return up to one other enchantment we control to its owner's hand. Yes, please, being able to return enchantments back to our hand and recast them. I'll take that. The Sylvan Safekeeper. If we just want to protect our board sometimes. Sack land, target creature we control gains Shroud. Return Enchantress. Whenever we play an enchantment spell, we get to draw a card. Plain and simple, and exactly what we want. And the Wave Break Hippocamp. Whenever we cast our first spell during an opponent's turn, draw a card. It's also a pretty efficient enchantment creature, so lots of fun there. Moving on to our non-creature enchantments, running a few sagas such as Elspeth's Nightmare. 3 mana, destroy target creature and opponent controls with power 2 or less. As our format speeds up, we have a lot of super efficient creatures that we can knock off with this, be it a Llanowar Elf, be it a Zulaport Cutthroat. Lots of things we can hit with this. Chapter 2, target opponent reveals their hand. We get to choose a non-creature, non-land card from it and force them to discard. Nice. Get rid of the board wipe because we know somebody's got holding on onto a board wipe. And Chapter 3 is exile target opponent's graveyard. Enchantress's Presence. Cast an enchantment, draw a card. Yes, please. We are running the Blood Bond combo, so Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond are both here. Exquisite Blood, of course, reads that whenever an opponent loses life, we gain that much life. And Sanguine Bond is whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Just by casting enchantments, it's so easy to trigger this loop, so obviously we're going to run it. Ramp Piece and Fertile Ground. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional mana of any color. Running the Hondens. Yes, we are running the Sanctums as well. But looking at the Honden. Green and 4, and at the beginning of our upkeep, create a 1/1 colorless spirit token for each shrine we control. Yes, please, people are going to come and swing at us, so we want to block. This makes a lot of blockers for us. Honden of Night's Reach. At the beginning of our upkeep, target opponent discards a card for each shrine we control. If our opponents don't have resources, they can't use them against us. And Honden of Seeing Winds to help us draw cards for each shrine we control. Running Ill-Gotten Inheritance of all things. At the beginning of our upkeep, this deals 1 damage to each opponent and we gain a life. We can also pay 6, sacrifice it to deal 4 damage to an opponent, and we gain 4 life. I remember when this came out as standard, I actually built the deck because this is such... It's like the worst best card ever, the best worst card ever. I don't know, this was fun in standard, and I was looking for a commander deck to shoehorn this into, and this is the one. Jugen Defends the Temple. Nice one of the newer sagas. 3 mana, and Chapter 1 we get a 1/1 human monk that can tap for green. Chapter 2 is put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Chapter 3 lets us exile this and turn it into a Remnant of the Rising Star. So that's a 2/2 flying. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we may pay X to put X +1/+1 counters on that creature. I thought that was cool. As long as we control 5 or more modified creatures, this gets +5/+5 and has trample. Mutate doesn't count as modified for some odd reason. So I'm not really running this. I'm not really running this to have a big flyer, although we could get there in concept. Life of Toshiro Umezawa. I'm not a huge fan of this in EDH, but I thought this was a fun ad here. Black and 1. Chapter 1 and 2. We get to choose one of the following. Have a creature get +2/+2 until end of turn. Have a creature get -1/-1 until end of turn, or gain 2 life. So all of the effects that you can find on Umezawa Jite. Chapter 3 is we get to, of course, turn this into a Memory of Toshiro. A 2/3 that we can tap and pay a life to add a black mana, but only to cast instants or sorceries. So not great, but again, it's an enchantment, it fits the theme, and I thought it was just a fun ad for this deck. Akiba Reckoner Raid. Now this synergizes a little better. For a single black, chapters 1 and 2, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. Well, that's what we want to do. Chapter 3 is exile this, return it to the battlefield as a Nezumi Road Captain. We're not running any vehicles here, obviously. It's just the 2/2 menace for us. But it's also here for that 1 mana and get those first couple of triggers. Running the Omen cycle from Theros Beyond Death. So Omen of the Dead, of course, 1 black. This has flash, and whenever it enters the battlefield, return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. We can also sacrifice this to scry too. Omen of the Hunt lets us get a basic land. And Omen of the Sea lets us scry 2, then draw a card on ATB. And for 2 mana, that's a great deal. There's our Sanctums. Sanctum of Calm Waters. Beginning of our pre-combat main phase, we may draw X and then discard a card. X being the number of shrines we control. The Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest. At the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, add X to anyone of any one color. X is the number of shrines we control. Yeah, I'll take ramp. And Sanctum of Stone Fangs. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of shrines we control. Nice. We've already talked about Sanguine Bond, so on to Shimmering Wings, which is pretty much an all-star here. 1 blue, enchanted creature has flying. That doesn't seem like much. Wait, 1 blue, return this to its owner's hand. So as long as we have some extra blue mana lying around, we can recast this multiple times. The Long Reach of Night. 4 mana, chapters 1 and 2. Each opponent sacrifices a creature unless they discard a card. So either way, we're taking resources away from our opponents. And chapter 3, Exile the Saga. It becomes an Animus of Night's Reach. At 0/4 with Menace. But whenever this attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in the defending player's graveyard. Sure thing. The Modern Age. 2 mana, draw a card, then discard a card on chapters 1 and 2. For Common Saga, this is actually really, really good. I've tried it in a couple of decks. It puts in the work. And chapter 3, this becomes a Vector Glider, a simple 2/2 or 2/3, in fact, with flying. Like I said, simple, but it does everything that we want it to do. Tribute to Hirobi. This card I've cast once so far, and this puts in work. So for 2 mana, chapters 1 and 2, each opponent creates a 1/1 Black Rat Rogue creature token. Those rats could come at us. We have the discretion to block or not to block. Why wouldn't we want to block? Because chapter 3, this becomes an Echo of Death's Wail. One of the few saga creatures that have haste, so this can actually attack the turn after it hits chapter 3. Most of the others cannot. But when this enters the battlefield, we gain control of all rat tokens, and whenever this attacks, we can sacrifice another creature, such as the rats, to draw a card. And I don't know why it keeps going to the other screen. Vision Skies is not in the deck, but Twisted Embrace is. Black and 2 for this aura. Enchant artifact or creature we control. Obviously, we're enchanting a creature with this. When this enters the battlefield, destroy a target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1. So yes, we're going to enchant one of our creatures because this is an aura, it gives us the trigger, and the ETB lets us destroy a creature. So, yes, that is exactly what we want to be doing. Over to instants and sorceries. Let us start with Death to the Kami. Target opponent exiles a creature they control, or target opponent exiles an enchantment they control. So, I don't know. I thought it was fun to highlight a black card that can exile enchantments. Keep safe. Someone wants to target one of our things. Not only will we counter that spell, but we get to draw a card. The March of Swirling Mist to phase out our board. It keeps our mutated creatures intact, which is pretty cool. Negate, counter a non-creature spell. Planar Incision. Exile target artifact or creature, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Now, if you use this on a mutated creature, it has the weird effect of separating all of the creatures. So let's say we've mutated one of our tokens with both Otrimi and the Octopus. If we were to blink it out with Planar Incision, the token would be gone, but we would get both Otrimi and the Octopus as separate creatures. Still, it's a nice way of dodging some removal. Season of Renewal. Choose one or both. Return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Return an enchantment card from our graveyard to our hand. These are both cards that we have a lot of in this deck, so yes, please. Swan Song, just a good, efficient counter spell. And Tamiyo's Safekeeping. This lets us protect any single permanent on our board for 1 green mana. We also gain 2 life. So yes, please. Just 2 sorceries here, including Creeping Corrosion. We don't have any artifacts, so let's blow up all the artifacts. And the Mythos of Brokos. Green, and 2 for the sorcery, but we can also cast it for green, black, blue. So if we cast it for green, black, blue, we get to search our library for a card, put it into our graveyard, then shuffle our library. Then we get to return 2 permanent cards from our graveyard to our hand. Yep, so we can choose to take 2 permanents back from our graveyard straight up, or we can go tutor out something and get it into our hand that way. So, yes please. Over to lands. 37 lands in the deck, including the cycle of legendary lands. So there's Boseiju, which someone said is a bad card because we're giving our opponents a land back. No, because it's just going to wreck a key piece that our opponent controls, and there's very little response to this. Breeding Pool, of course. I've got the Unfinity lands showcased in this program for whatever reason. I'm not a huge Unfan personally. I'll get back to you on that, but obviously these lands are going to enter circulation soon, so we'll be seeing a fresh batch of shock lands in the system. The Choked Estuary. So the Snarl lands, as we now call them, are in Command Tower. Dimir Aqueduct. So if we play our legendary lands, we can bring them back to our hand using these Karoo lands, as they're also known as. Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, running the classic fetch package, budget fetch package, I should say. 6 forests, a Golgari Rock Farm, 6 islands, Necro Blossom Snarl, Opulent Palace. It comes into play tap, gives us all our colors. Otawara, Soaring City. Using the channel ability, we can return an artifact, creature, or enchantment or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Overgrown Tomb. The Path of Ancestry. This comes into play tapped. It taps for all of our colors. We're not running a lot of humans or ninjas in this deck, but if we do, we get to scry. Simic Growth Chamber. 6 swamps. Takenuma, Abandoned Mire, which we can channel to mill 3 cards, then return a creature or planeswalker from our graveyard to our hand. Just nice to have on a land. The Terramorphic Expanse, Vine Glimmer Snarl, Watery Grave, and the Zygoth Triome. And that is Tatsunari Toad Rider, with a lot of spicy mutate thrown in and a lot of spicy enchantments thrown in. I hope you all enjoyed that take. This one's running a little on the long side, almost 25 minutes already, so we're going to call it there. And the goal is going to be one deck tech a month, usually in the later part of the month, so I will see you all again for the next deck tech, whatever that may be. I haven't decided yet. And I'll also see you again soon with more episodes of the first 10. So with that in mind, we will see you all next time. Bye for now.